Welcome to my very first and maybe the very last quickfire question time that hopefully will lead up to a bigger picture. At the end, there will be a Q&A from people observing silently in the background. And I want to apologise. When I was backing up this Zoom meeting, the video has disappeared. But because I made a secondary audio recording, I've managed to salvage what the Zoom presented. I will now let my guest introduce themselves to you.
So I joined Kent Police initially in 2000, and I had before that I'll take you back a little bit before that actually.
But first, I'm going to bring a section of the audio right to the front, and this is to do with 8 points that I put to Gary Waterman. If you want to know more, just watch it till the end. It's quite interesting.
Recording in progress.
So I'm going off track a little bit. So what can people do? The first thing is I would suggest people look at the evidence, they corroborate it and verify it and make sure they trust me. You know, make sure they need to know what I'm saying is true.
You've just mentioned that you want people to trust you. Just before I move on to the Q&A, I just want to make a statement which includes 8 points I want to put to you. Number 1, you would like to collate group information. Number 2, you would like to create more time for strategic purposes. Number 3, you would like to form more information for arrest teams. Number 4, you want to create meetings with representatives. Number 5, you want to supply information for a marketing specialist working on mass distribution of information, working away from social media and mainstream media. Number 6, you want to receive information about any organised groups established. Number 7, you would like to know if anything is already established that you're not aware about. Number 8, and you are prepared to hold off if people already have matters in hand surrounding opportunities to eliminate risks. Do you have anything to say for a defence?
Yeah, should we address each one at a time?
Number 1, you would like to collate group information.
If it assists in resolving the problem and it is necessary to do that, then we've got to do whatever is necessary to stop this. It must stop.
Number 2, you would like to create more time for strategic purposes.
We haven't got much time, but it has to be creative and peaceful way, I believe. But we are very short of time.
Number 3, you would like to form more information for arrest teams.
I don't want to form the information necessarily, but I want to resolve this. If that involves forming arrest teams, strategic coordinated arrest teams, where it is lawful, then absolutely I want to do that because it must be stopped.
Number 4, you want to create meetings with representatives.
Yes, providing they can add and contribute to resolving the problem, and they want to be part of revealing the truth. Because let's face it, it's got to come back to finding out the truth of this so that we know where to head with it. We've got to have the truth first.
Number 5, you want to supply information for a marketing specialist working on mass distribution of information, working away from social media and mainstream media.
I'm in touch with a guy who is looking at the ability of distributing information through every letterbox away from social media. And my understanding is that is to negate if social media or a cyber attack was to happen, for example, or social media was to be taken down, it would ensure that the truth is distributed to the general public, because this is all about them knowing the truth as to what is happening.
Number 6, you want to receive information about any organised groups established.
Yeah, I mean, the more we unite on this, I mean, there'll be groups I'm not even aware of yet. Absolutely. We all need to be working collectively together for the same end goal in a strategic, coordinated and timely way. Absolutely. Because otherwise, if I don't know about groups, they're all maybe doing the same sort of thing. We're duplicating work. We're not actually going to be as effective as we would be if we worked collectively together to resolve this.
Number 7, you would like to know if anything is already established that you're not aware about.
Absolutely.
Number 8, and you are prepared to hold off if people already have matters in hand surrounding opportunities to eliminate risks.
I'm happy. If I was to know that this is all in hand and I can trust that it's being dealt with, then I'm happy to hold off. But at the moment, there's nothing in my mind to say that the threat of risk and harm, which was my professional skill, has been eliminated at the moment.
Many people would say the information you require could easily be deemed a double-edged sword, and eliminating the risk To who, exactly? Would that be the people, or the sinister cocksuckers of Satan? I have just made up what I believe to be a common law caution, and it goes like this. You did not have to say anything, but it may have harmed your defence if you did not mention something when questioned, something you may later rely on in court. Do you have anything to say for a defence?
That's not the actual caution. You've changed the words from the normal police caution there slightly.
Do you have anything to say for a defence?
A defence to what?
Don't worry about that. It's just my sense of humour.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I'm a bit slow sometimes. Sorry.
Let's take it from the role of a police officer. From your first application to becoming a police officer, how long did it take for you to become a police officer to the first day on the beat?
Very quick. I think it was about 32 weeks training you have until you go out on the beat, and then you're with a tutor constable. So you're then alongside somebody who tutors you. I can't remember the exact timings because it was 24 years ago that I joined, but something like that. And then you have a 2-year probationary period back then. I think it might have changed.
Name some of your biggest challenges as a police officer.
I think the overall challenge is, like I've just touched on, going to so many different types of jobs and knowing how to deal with so many different types of things. And you have to go to one and then you may have to leave very quickly and go to another and come back to what you were doing to finalise an investigation or gather evidence around that original thing you were dealing with. So I think adaptation of what you're dealing with and what is required for each specific incident. So I think that's the most challenging. In terms of a specific job that I went to, I think the biggest challenge for me was probably telling people that somebody has passed away. So if you went to a sudden death and having to tell, whether it be a daughter or another member of the family, that their loved one has passed away. I think that's probably the hardest thing about the job emotionally.
Did you see yourself rising in the ranks in time to come?
No, well, I thought about it. I took my sergeant's exam, so I had there was 2 parts to become well, 3 parts actually, but there were 2 initial parts to become a sergeant. So I took those first 2 parts. The first one was like a practical, as far as I can remember, a little while ago I did it, but there was a practical element to it, role-playing situations and how you dealt with those role-play situations. And there was also an exam stage, so I passed both of those. And I sort of decided that I didn't want to pursue it anymore, but because I passed those 2 parts, it meant that I could become an acting sergeant or a non-substantive sergeant role, I suppose, which is where you can do the role of a sergeant, but you're not actually officially a full accredited sergeant in the full 5 years of my career. And that involved running a team of response officers at the front line. So you'd literally, I suppose, be a supervisor. You'd be a point of contact for those group of officers around. I think when I was working in Dorset, which was a busy area because it was in Bournemouth, where there's a lot of nightlife, I think it was about 8 to 10 officers that I would have been supervising, sometimes more, on a Friday and Saturday night. And no, I didn't really want to pursue going up the ranks because I knew that I would come away from frontline policing, and I wanted to be someone that was the sort of spearhead, I suppose, and going to the jobs and dealing with the public and trying to manage those scenes and that evidence gathering at the first sort of point of the police contact, I suppose.
You eventually became an acting police sergeant. Was you offered this position, or did you apply for it?
The sergeant, I applied to take those initial steps as a sergeant.
Was you ever invited to any charity events during your time as a police officer?
No, I didn't. Well, we used to have, like, sometimes if you were on they were called the Safer Neighbourhood Team department at that point, which I was part of, which is where I was, for part of my career, I was like a Bobby on the beat, I suppose. So I had a particular area that was my responsibility, and I was the main point of contact. So you would attend sort of fete maybe, and, if you had any charity events, then you would go and police those. But no, I had no specific involvement other than policing charitable events.
In all your time as a serving police officer, did you hear any of your colleagues talk about Freemasonry?
I mean, I was in the police for 18 years. I had about 3.5 years of that was a career break, because you're lucky you can take up to 5 years. But in the time I was in the police, I don't recall one conversation around Freemasonry. I'd heard about it, but didn't really know anything about it. And it was only when I left the police in 2018 that I had a very steep learning curve to identify that they appeared to be behind most of the world's problems, it appears.
What do you know about Freemasonry?
To be honest, I wouldn't want to say too much in case I get it wrong. I do believe the Freemasons generally were...
Sorry to interrupt. Let me just change the question.
Of course, of course.
What's your opinion about Freemasons?
Well, my opinion at the moment is that I believe that they've been the front for an organised criminal system, with those at the top being involved in very sinister activities and fraud against the general public in relation to real estate and banking fraud. But I think most Freemasons have probably didn't even know about this, and they've been caught up into the charitable, if you like, front of the Freemasons, which is actually part of the fraud anyway, through money laundering fronts set up through a charitable system.
Why did you leave the police organisation?
Yeah, well, in around 2016, I think it was 2016, Theresa May was the Home Secretary for the country, and she reduced the number of police officers by about 20,000. They also shut numerous police stations across the country. It became very apparent that we couldn't do our job. We were being almost not coerced, but being led to believe that we need to look for evidence or reasons not to investigate a crime, rather than the reason I joined, which was to actually go to the nth degree and help, Mrs. Miggins that's been burgled, and look for evidence. It was as we were being led to believe that we should actually look for reasons not to, and I lost my heart in the job. We couldn't do the job anymore, and I just lost I suppose I realised that they couldn't fulfil the service that they should be or could be. Little did I know that it actually relates directly to this system of fraud, and I didn't know at the time, but the reduction in the 20,000 police officers links heavily to what I've now identified in this system of fraud. But prior to leaving, there was an incident where I was at home in the morning, and I was with my wife, and I fell down onto a chair, and I was unconscious for about 10 minutes and didn't know what had happened. And it transpired a long way down the line that I had an AV block in my heart. So there'd been some sort of electrical problem in my heart. And of course, this affected my role in the police at that time, and I had to go on to light duties. And that, I suppose, also sort of influenced my decision to leave the police. And I voluntarily resigned in 2018. Well, I worked out my finances and worked out that I could leave, and I decided to leave. And it's only because I've left, I think, that is, along with everything else, that has given me the ability to now uncover this system of fraud. I don't believe that is a coincidence in any way, shape or form.
Let's change the topic. Let's talk about van life. When did you first become involved in van life? Oh, seem to have lost Gary there. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Mark. No problems. What he'll have to do is he'll probably just have to hit the link. There, he's just come back now. There you go.
Welcome back, Gary. Oh, he's gone again. How strange.
Yeah, he's struggling to get a signal. He was travelling around all yesterday to get one. But he should come back on.
Oh yeah, here he is.
I'm back.
Yeah, just picking up from where we left off. Tell me more about van life and what you think about it.
I love it. I love it. We the thing that got us into that was we in 2010 we went to New Zealand, and we hired a camper van from Auckland, and we travelled down both islands. I was on a career break from the police at that point, or a long holiday, I should say, at that point, and we loved it. we loved it. You know, we love the fact that you can park up at the next to a lake or a river or up on a mountain, wake up in the morning with the door open, have your coffee with the sunrise or sunset. Absolutely love it. And ever since we've had a camper van, which very fortunately enabled me to protect us and move away from my address when I identified how serious this was becoming.
When did you first become active on YouTube?
I think it was in September 2023, last year, I think I started.
What prompted you to make a YouTube channel?
Because I realised that this system of fraud was actually involved the organisations that should be dealing with it. And I realised the only way that I was going to resolve this was public exposure, because the legal system's corrupted, been infiltrated. All mainstream media, I found out, was, like I said, the organisations, the Serious Fraud Office, the home of politicians, not just politicians in the UK. I found most of them to that system of fraud, because they control the system that's being used as the vessel for the fraud. So I realised at that point, right, I need to get this evidence YouTube channel as a method of trying to get that out.
When you found out about the fraud taking place in your company, how did that make you feel?
Well, initially, I didn't think it was. I mean, it snowballed very quickly. Initially, I thought it might have been taken from our company accounts, and it affected various. Because we were in the block of flats, there's 42 flats that it relates to initially. And obviously I was upset. I wasn't angry at all. In fact, they were angry at me for discovering what they'd been up to. They became so angry that one of them resigned, the acting chairman. And then I had another, also just swiped the Alpha Free scheme. 2 other directors resigned from my company. But to be honest with you, I felt sorry for these people. I still feel sorry. I'm a Christian. I feel sorry for people involved in this, because they've sacrificed their moral conscience for greed or whatever else it is they want to be into, their sinister activities. And they're their own worst enemies. You know, our moral conscience is the most valuable asset we have.
Since finding out about the fraud within your company, what else did you start to find out?
Well, since it was very escalated very quickly. So when I identified the scale and the size of the fraud, but I also found very quickly it was linked to a child trafficking ring. And I did that by coming in from research from Ghislaine Maxwell, Robert Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, researching them. And looking through Companies House from their perspective, coming into it, and found that it all overlapped in relation to everything that I was finding. So I followed the evidential links through the Companies House register, via the people, via the legal incorporation documents, and found that it all overlapped. And then it linked to articles, news articles, where there'd been apparent murder and abuse of children within the care system. And again, researched that from another angle, and it all overlapped again into politicians, into top police officers, into my company. I mean, it all heavily links back to particular individuals in my company. They're absolutely key to a lot of this.
Is there anything else that gives you serious thoughts for concern?
Yeah, so initially, I had all the evidence for the child trafficking, and that concerned me greatly. And then to expose that, other people got in touch with me, and it led to me uncovering irrefutable links to suggest that this 5G was a real motive around the fraud, but also a possible deliberate depopulation event utilizing the technology of 5G. And there's a lot of evidence supporting all of those concerns. So that is now my main priority and concern, is to deal with that, what I think is actually quite an imminent threat, actually.
You mentioned 5G. Can you give me one example of a threat from 5G?
Okay. So very quickly, back in 2008, when I was a police officer, either 2008, 2009, I was contacted by a lady who lived on the area where I was a police officer, and she was adamant that some form of directed energy system was being directed into her property and that she was suffering health issues as a result. But it really troubled me because she was very clear, very adamant that this was happening. She was in some sort of a dispute with the council or government. I can't remember exactly, but there was some sort of dispute. And there was no obvious signs that she was suffering from psychological issues. But of course, I wasn't aware of any such technology. So I couldn't help this lady. If we then come forward to 2023 and Nicola Bulley passed away, the lady that was walking a dog along the river in Lancashire, somebody said to me, Gary, have a look at the companies and research your fraud around Nicola Bulley. And lo and behold, around Nicola Bulley, there were various companies, but two stood out. And that was BAE Systems and a company called Thales. And they were developing around the time of Nicola Bulley's death a new directed energy weapon, which you can now look at and see, called Dragonfire, that is now being tested and used. I don't know if it's actively used yet in conflict by our defence for the UK. So that was a concern to me. I then highlighted this connection to the fraud around Nicola Bulley and this link to the directed energy weapon. And then I had people suggesting they were experts in relation networks and in the ULEZ cameras, so the low emission cameras. And they said something along the lines of, Gary, you do realise there's direct weapons now integrated into the 5G and the low emission cameras. And I was sent various videos explaining the technology and why that was harmful. Obviously, at this time, I had to take that the pinch of salt, and I couldn't verify or corroborate. But I looked into it further and then found out that there was a company that led to the Association of Conservative Clubs company, and very quickly that led to an English-Russian company, and then to the intelligence agencies, and to my company very, very quickly, to the royal family companies very quickly, and to pooled pension funds. So there was actually a company called Royal, I haven't got it in front of me, but it was something like Royal Pooled Pension Fund Company. And very close to this was the same company, Thales, that was developing the directed energy weapons with BAE Systems around the time of Nicola Bulley. So this obviously concerned me greatly, because you now had a potential financial interest in these weapons, potentially linked to the 5G and the pooling of pensions. Now, that means if there was a depopulation event, those pensions, if they were part of the fraud, they could use the forged bank documents and take the money from those pensions accounts and defraud general members of the public, wherever the pensions have come from, of course. But that still did not highlight it.
Sorry to interrupt you again, Gary. Basically, I'm running out of time. This is a free Zoom session.
Oh, dear.
How do I start another one? What do I do now? I'm not right sure.
Right, Mark. What everybody, you can set another one up straight away and just email the link out, and we can join again. You can just do another 40 minutes. Just email another link out to everyone.
Right, thanks for that, Heath. What I'll do now, I'll just send everybody a new link for a new Zoom meeting, and just bear with me, and I'll get that out to you now.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Right, I can see you're there, Martin. Hi, Martin.
Hi, Mark.
BANAMAN!
How you doing, Gary?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. Michelle says you was a bit frightened for your life yesterday, apparently.
Not frightened for my life. I'm trying to think why they would have sent me I mean, they're going to want to get rid of me, that's for sure. I think they've already had a go at my life. I want to keep this going. This is too big an opportunity to stop. So I'm trying to call them out at every opportunity, because they're not going to want me to keep going with this. I'm exposing people all the time.
Right, it's too late now.
Well, yeah, that's it. I mean, most of the evidence is around the world, so they're not going to stop most of it. they'll obviously be worried about me exposing individuals a bit more than I have, I suppose. But, you know, I'm just going to keep going. I'm not going to let that stop me. I'll just try and keep myself safe as much as we can.
Yeah, talking of individuals, these that don't get back to you, that have the companies on companies' arse, what we're going to do with them?
What you mean with the people that are supposedly on YouTube saying all the right things and aren't?
Yeah.
Well, I think, I mean, it's all part of the big problem, isn't it? I think we need to look at what we're going to do about the problem overall, really, which I've got various ideas, but it's certainly going to be a challenge.
Well, I'm thinking about those that's putting our freedom on the line when we go and take these asses back, and that will stop bailiffs. We know we've got a few bad ones in the group, but
yes.
I mean, I don't want to see any of our lot getting arrested or anything. So, you know,
no, that's right.
But I think Phil might want to talk a bit more about that.
I think Phil's joined us now.
Yeah,
and there's another one there with iPhone 2 as an ID. I think that's Heath.
Oh, no, it might be Heath. No, there was 6.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah, it's me. I've just joined on my iPhone. I'm having my nana nap and putting my headphones on.
So, just picking up again from where we left off, how do you think people will read into all this information you are currently talking about, and maybe even trying to organise?
Well, I'm seeing a lot of the reactions. A lot of them are like, wow, this is the biggest evidence and information for over a century. I absolutely agree. Some of them are lost in what can be done about it. And they're asking me what the answers are. And there's a mixture of emotions. And many people are, wow, what a great thing this is how I feel. What a great thing we now know what they have been doing and what the key is to most of the suffering on the planet. It is unquestionably this, because what this has done, and I don't want to repeat myself too much, but through a crime, don't forget, it has removed liability and accountability. It all comes down to that. If someone can be held liable or accountable for the suffering of others, you massively reduce the chance of them being involved in any activity that creates that suffering. And that crime is what has led to this suffering.
What are you currently actively working on surrounding your concerns about 5G?
Okay, so we're now starting to form representatives from large groups around the country, not only around the country, but internationally. So we're trying to get the council watches on board, the residential associations on board, but also health experts, technology experts. We've also got somebody that has worked out the world death rate over the last few decades and the last decade or so, and worked out how it correlates to the 5G activation. I mean, that is very interesting when you look at that.
What could you advise people watching this?
The first thing is I would suggest people look at the evidence, they corroborate it and verify it, and make sure they trust me. You know, make sure they need to know what I'm saying is true. They can't just believe what I'm saying. And that is why the documents and the evidence I've presented, although it's complex and it's probably not done in the best way, it does enable that verification to take place. As soon as people understand and believe me and trust in me, then I think we can rally around those that are also coming around me and work out this strategy on how we can all resolve it. So it's down to really the numbers in the public support to compel a change in the system. Now, I've stopped paying everything. I've stopped paying everything, even my mortgage, because I can't be complicit now to this system of fraud that is in place. If I pay anything into this, I'm actually causing the suffering to these individuals, even though there is very clearly a way of putting a system in place to prevent that and provide reassurance to the public that it is not being used in crime and suffering, but they're not doing it. So my advice to the public is, once you agree with this evidence, you understand it, and you can share it with those that you pay your tax to show, you know, look at this, look at what you're part of, I can't pay my tax. If enough people was to do that, this would change almost overnight, because we could use that withholding of taxes and payments to compel a change in the system, and that would be a completely peaceful way to do it. There will be no need for a civil uprising or taking to the streets and any violence. It's just getting that information and evidence to enough people to do that and overcome their fear of doing that, and it will change things almost immediately. But for those that don't want to do that, present the evidence to your councillors, to your MPs. Use my research to research your MPs and call them out on it. This is why we're getting so many resignations, because we're exposing the evidence. Don't forget, again, this is important. It's verifiable. It's corroborative in their own system. Don't forget, this is a government system where this evidence is being shown. So there's nothing they can do about it. It's not me writing up a load of documents pretending it's there. This is their own system exposing their own weakness, their own crime, and it is going to be the end of them.
You've just mentioned that you want people to trust you. Just before I move on to the Q&A, I just want to make a statement which includes 8 points I want to put to you. Number 1, you would like to collate group information. Number 2, you would like to create more time for strategic purposes. Number 3, you would like to form more information for arrest teams. Number 4, you want to create meetings with representatives. Number 5, you want to supply information for a marketing specialist working on mass distribution of information, working away from social media and mainstream media. Number 6, you want to receive information about any organised groups established. Number 7, you would like to know if anything is already established that you're not aware about. Number 8, and you are prepared to hold off if people already have matters in hand surrounding opportunities to eliminate risks. Do you have anything to say for a defence?
Yeah, should we address each one at a time?
Number 1, you would like to collate group information.
If it assists in resolving the problem and it is necessary to do that, then we've got to do whatever is necessary to stop this. It must stop.
Number 2, you would like to create more time for strategic purposes.
We haven't got much time, but it has to be a creative and peaceful way, I believe. But we are very short of time.
Number 3, you would like to form more information for arrest teams.
I don't want to form the information necessarily, but I want to resolve this. If that involves forming arrest teams, strategic coordinated arrest teams, where it is lawful, then absolutely I want to do that, because it must be stopped.
Number 4, you want to create meetings with representatives.
Yes, providing they can add and contribute to resolving the problem, and they want to be part of revealing the truth. Because let's face it, it's got to come back to finding out the truth of this so that we know where to head with it. We've got to have the truth first.
Number 5, you want to supply information for a marketing specialist working on mass distribution of information, working away from social media and mainstream media.
I'm in touch with a guy who is looking at the ability of distributing information through every letterbox away from social media. And my understanding is that is to negate if social media or a cyber attack was to happen, for example, or social media was to be taken down, it would ensure that the truth is distributed to the general public, because this is all about them knowing the truth as to what is happening.
Number 6, you want to receive information about any organised groups established.
Yeah, I mean, the more we unite on this, I mean, there'll be groups I'm not even aware of yet. Absolutely. We all need to be working collectively together for the same end goal in a strategic, coordinated and timely way. Absolutely. Because otherwise, if I don't know about groups, they're all maybe doing the same sort of thing. We're duplicating work. We're not actually going to be as effective as we would be if we worked collectively together to resolve this.
Number 7, you would like to know if anything is already established that you're not aware about.
Absolutely.
Number 8, and you are prepared to hold off if people already have matters in hand surrounding opportunities to eliminate risks.
I'm happy. If I was to know that this is all in hand and I can trust that it's being dealt with, then I'm happy to hold off. But at the moment, there's nothing in my mind to say that the threat of risk and harm, which was my professional skill, has been eliminated at the moment.
Many people would say the information you require could easily be deemed a double-edged sword, and eliminating the risk to who exactly? Would that be the people or the sinister cocksuckers of Satan. I have just made up what I believe to be a common law caution, and it goes like this. You did not have to say anything, but it may have harmed your defence if you did not mention something when questioned, something you may later rely on in court. Do you have anything to say for a defence?
That's not the actual caution. You've changed the words from the normal police caution there slightly.
Do you have anything to say for a defence?
A defence to what?
Don't worry about that. It's just my sense of humour.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm a bit slow sometimes. Sorry.
Moving swiftly on to the Q&A, Martin has a question for you.
I think I've already asked mine, mate, so go straight to Phil if you want.
Phil, what's your question for Gary?
This is the thing. So, what about the people that have been working on this for years and they've actually, gone, done notices to the councillors and things. We had Andrew Lewis in Chester. He was put on notice about the 5G, about the trees, and then they moved into Liverpool. We found him again. So what they're doing, they're just moving around. So this is the thing. We've come to a point now where we've got enough evidence. If you look around now, this is just our police force. And, it's a spider web of corruption, from the chief constable to the superintendent, armed response team sent out to shut us down, taking property, bailiffs that aren't being dealt with. So this is the thing, we've got enough of a network now of people that want to make the arrest. But what we're finding is, especially with, I'm just going to name a name because I want to get to the bottom of something. So you've got someone there called the Rat Catcher. So he's using Peace Officers UK. The UK is the United Kingdom Corporation, yeah? So what are we doing? Are we following them sort of people to be misled into the United Kingdom? For me, I live in the Kingdom of England. I live next door to the Kingdom of Wales. And up the road, I've got the Kingdom of Scotland, and over the water, the Kingdom of Ireland. So this is the thing, it's spells casting spells. We need to get to the bottom of what we're trying to get, what we're trying to get done. So we're trying to disassociate ourselves from the UK, the United Kingdom Corporation. They're committing fraud. Yeah. We've got everything.
Yeah, I agree.
So people now are either complicit or totally stupid. Yeah, this is the be all and end all, and I keep explaining this. And people, to me, stand out. People that aren't in it for the right thing, they have something that it just stands out to me straight away, immediately. Not necessarily say anything, but I just let things pan out, and things have panned out to exactly how I expected it. So what we need to do now is, we need to be concentrating on one area at a time. And I think, to me, the most evidence we've got is in between Chester and Liverpool. And what we need to do is we need to remove the councillors. We've even been in the council. They ran out of the room. They got the stuff and they abandoned the room. They've left the positions after us telling them you need to leave your positions immediately. They got up and left. So they've already left the positions as far as I'm concerned. So what we need to be doing now is we need to be removing the councils. Because let's go back to 2020, where the council started orchestrating this fraud in the way of the coronavirus. Now, I went and served the High Court judge in London, Judge Justice Jay, on this matter. He ran out of court as well. They're all complicit. They've all been notified, and they know exactly what they're doing. So it's time we need to just remove them. I'm sick of going around talking and doing videos and doing this and that and podcasts. We need to decide what we're going to do. And I think us starting in one area, getting together and just getting one area at a time, going to move through the country till we've removed them all. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I'll come on to a few of the things you've said. So first of all, I don't think most people are stupid. I think they've been conditioned to believe what they're seeing on the fake mainstream media. And this was, you've probably seen a document called Silent Weapons of Quiet Wars. If you haven't, go and look at that, because this shows their plan. They've infiltrated the educational system. They've infiltrated media. They've practically brainwashed most of the general public. They've enabled the suppression of the public through alcohol, I believe, and other means, and through depression and pressure, financial pressure, to make them anxiety and fearful, to suppress them from the truth. So first of all, I'd like to say, I'll come to your other points in a sec. In relation to the corporation and the UK that you've mentioned, I think you're right that it is all fraudulent, but we need to work within their system at the moment as much as we can and get, I believe, as far as we can through the powers that they sort of use, as far as we can to resolve this. And if necessary, then we'll have to come out of their fraudulent criminal system at some point. But I think the timing of that is essential. Going to your other point of making the arrests, I do agree that that is probably. Is it going to be essential? I don't know. I'm getting the feeling that it may not be required, but I think we need to have that ability. But to me, I used to assess the threat of risk and harm within my job, and I've looked at the numbers of those willing to actively take part in doing that. And strategically, I don't think the support is quite there yet. And that is why I've not progressed the arrests side of things yet. This is only my personal opinion. We need Mrs. Miggins, who is sat at home, to be able to look at what we're doing and say, wow, they've tried everything else. They've got so much support. They've got no option now but to go and arrest. I think at the moment there is a risk, because there isn't the network in place and the support with enough people, there's a risk of losing the public in it, and then everything falls down and we go back to nothing. So I think that the momentum is so good and the evidence is so good. My personal opinion is we need to build a bit more of a support network from the general public, so that they then see what we're doing and they're all behind us in what we're doing. I think there's a risk of losing that if we act too quickly. Going back to your the arrests, I actually think that the main priority now is the considered removal of the 5G network. I think that is the biggest threat that we all face, because if we had, for example, 1,000 of us that were ready to go and start arrests, who's to say they don't then just ramp up the 5G and initiate their plan and take out vast swathes of humanity? You know, I think we need to prevent that from happening first. This is my personal opinion, to give us the time then to provide a strategy and the numbers and the support from the public in then making these arrests. So that's why I'm strategically working on the 5G first, to eliminate that risk if we can, and then continue building the numbers, of course, in the meantime, and then go to what you've said, which I think is absolutely possible. We arrest the members of parliament, all of them that have been in power since this fraud stepped down. They need to be arrested. The chief constables, the police and crime commissioners, arrest the whole lot. There's more than enough evidence with what you've said. It's bringing the evidence together strategically. So you've got what you've done, which is amazing. You've put all these councillors on notice. We need to get that evidence in a package when we all do go for the arrest. So we've got it there to hand. This MP's had this notice already. Look at all these emails. He's ignored it. He's now conspiring to commit international government fraud and child trafficking by the very nature of him not doing his job and actually addressing it as he should be. So I think, to me, you're right. You're passionate. I understand. And everyone wants to go and arrest these people. But I think if we get it wrong, we're going to be right back into a very difficult position. I think it's all about the timing, strategy, coordination, and doing it in the right way to maintain the public support throughout the whole lot.
That's it. I just don't think we've got the time to be, dealing with it. I think, by starting in each area, we know the 5G needs to go, and that's one of the priorities. And it does need to be first, and the lads are agreeing with that next to us. But, it's how much evidence do we gather? We could literally put the whole of the Cheshire Police Force behind bars, but there's just nothing's happening. People have known for 4 years what I want to do, and the evidence that I've got. And, it backs it up by me not being convicted for any crime. There's been no verified criminal complaints. So it's all just kidnapping me, holding me against me will, tea-packing me on the motorway, armed response outside my mum's house, my door cut off, my door kicked off. It's just endless. But when does it stop? This is the thing. But you know, what frustrates me is people misleading people in this movement. I'm talking about this person in particular that's supposed to be knowledgeable on law, supposed to know exactly what's going on, but they're pushing people into the United Kingdom corporation, associating themselves with it. Now, whoever creates it owns it. So if you're putting the UK, United Kingdom after your name, who owns that? Who created the United Kingdom? We need to stop misleading people.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Where, otherwise we're going to be round in circles. And, these people are trying to discredit people like me for what I'm doing when I've got the evidence, and I'm not that naive enough to think that, that they're not trying to manipulate people into their system. It's crazy, but it's not gonna stop, and it's just gonna keep going and going. So we need answers at this point, and we need to find out where we're going, and it needs to be pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think them using UK. I haven't even realised that, or sort of had a conversation with Rob or anyone else. I don't think that was an intentional misleading, as far as I'm aware. I think maybe I understand what you're saying. Do we need to worry about that at the moment? I don't think that's something we really need to be, because sorry, carry on.
No, that's fine. But, in one of their videos, they said there's a remedy in their corrupt system. How can there be any remedy in anything that's corrupt? We live on the land of England. People for generations have fought for our rights and our laws, which still stand today. If someone comes in and turns everything into a corporation, and under the Crown Agents Act 1995, it clearly states the corporations, and they've got no authority to use anything to do with the Crown. Or, so Crown prosecution's an ideal example. They're blatantly committing fraud because they're making people under the impression that they are under the Crown, but they're under the Crown Corporation. And this is where it's all been usurped. Our crown, we've got a crown on our head. We're sovereign. That's natural. We're kings and queens of this land. We're sovereign. There's someone to come around and say, oh no, we're sovereign, you're not sovereign, but they're a corporation that was made by man. How can something man-made have jurisdiction or authority over the creator? It's physically impossible. It just doesn't happen. So them going around saying they've got authority in there, sovereign, you look up sovereign, it refers to government all the time. Well, I'm sorry, but that's just, you know what I mean? That's just not how it is. So we need to be saying it is, and, we need to be open about it. And people need to realise what it is we're actually in and what we're involved in. And until that happens, as I said, it's just going to keep going round and round. So I think everyone needs to get on the same page. It's like, another rapid response group was set up to do with the Peace Officers UK. It's just, you know what I mean? Instead of getting involved in what's there and what's working, it's trying to separate people, cause a divide by setting up something that's just copying something else that's working. It's, it's blatant to me. It's blatant. I can see it clear as day, but it's just how do we deal with it?
As long as we all come together at the end of the day. I mean, maybe their intention for that, I don't know, was another area. So they've got another rapid response group closer to another area. I don't know. But as long as we come together at the end of the day with the same goal, which is no corruption, truth, transparency, trust. As long as we all are heading for that, we're all going to come in from different perspectives. But as long as we end up with that, then, that's what really matters, isn't it? It's just getting to that point. And we could say, well, why am I suggesting coming in and arresting people under Section 24 of the A of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act? Because that is probably a fraudulent act in itself, because it's been created by the fraudulent government. But I understand that at the moment we need to work within the realms of what they understand. And then once we've got as far as we can, then we can change the legal system. Then we can bring in man, woman, people courts. But until we get to the point where we've got more control of the system, we need to work within what they understand. And most police officers, so I understand what you're saying. I think it's about timing again, and I do agree with you, but I think we've got to do that when it's right. At the moment, we need to work within their rules as much as we can, so it suits us to our advantage, you know, because we can go, you know.
Only up until, you know, the Crown Agents Act 1995, until it was corporised. Before then, we had legislation. So arresting them under legislation is perfectly fine. It's the fact, you know, because that was there pre-1995. So, you know, when you look at the Crown Agents Act 1995, so arresting them under Section 24A of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, that's 1984. So it was there prior that the crimes, you know, happened. They're still making people think they're under the Crown, where it's actually the Crown Corporation. It's been usurped. So, we are using the legislation to arrest them. We're using legislation to show them the crimes they're committing, because that was there pre-95. But we need to tackle that, you know, aspect of it now they've got no authority whatsoever. But we can as constables use their legislation that was created. That's not an issue. But, you know, the problem lies with the corruption that's been since 95, where it's now all corporate, and a corporation has no authority whatsoever over men and women. And this is the two sides of the system that we need to get our heads around, that we are men and women. We go against our day-to-day business. But as soon as we have to pay a bill, like for maintenance for water or the gas supply or electric, then we use the trust side of it to accept that for value. Because what's happening is they're not accepting that for value. They're putting money on it. They're paying backhanders. They're increasing the national debt off our credits. Where if we're accepting it for value, and this is the thing, the system that's been set up is great, because you've got the two sides. You've got the living man side, you've got the corporate side. Everyone has a business. So why aren't we using our trust the same way as we use our business? So our main trust is our name. Mine's Philip Kevin McLaughlin. That's my corporation name. That was corporatized when my mum and dad passed me over and registered me at birth. That then was traded on. But if we're doing this ourselves and trading on our kids, on what they're going to become and what they're going to put into society, and then when they become 18, they start accepting stuff of value. They can go and purchase a car with the credits that's been created from the backing of the gold, but it's just been corrupted. So the system's there. It's like with the councils. If we remove the higher councils and keep the 501 officers that are there, that do the forms for the IRS, that claim them credits, if they've got a choice, then either you're doing the right thing, this is the fraud, you need to be on this side, and you need to keep doing your job to keep this city moving, or you leave your position and you may spend the rest of the life in prison, because this is the way it is. So we don't have to change the system. What we do is we have to remove the fraud out of the system, and we have to use the system for what it was first purposely created for. And that was for us to be beneficiaries of what was backed on us at birth. The system's great, and we know exactly how we can keep the system going, but we need to be removing the criminals that have taken this from us, and they're using it for their own benefits. We know exactly what they're doing. We know how they've done it, and we know exactly how we can resolve it without changing things too much. And people aren't speaking about this. They're not speaking about, I keep hearing, trying to resolve what they've put in place, trying to, find our way through this, maze of corruption that they've created, where we just need to be realizing now, right, what do we want? How do we want our futures to pan out? And how I've just described it is an ideal way of us moving forward, our children being the beneficiaries as it was first made, but it's been corrupted for them to be in the beneficiaries. This is why when you go into court, the judge tries to switch places from the trustee to the beneficiary. And this is where the corruption is. But, you know, and until everyone's on the same page and understands it, that's why I don't have time for people that aren't talking about this. Because if you're claiming you know the law and you know exactly what they're doing and you've got answers, this is what you should be aware of, and you should know, you know, what's going on. So as I said, I think we're in a good position to be taking over now. We've got people in place in Liverpool to take over the council. We've got people ready with the UTC that are all clued up on the UTC. We just need the 501 officer to stick around in that building. The police are on notice. There's nothing more we can do. We've exhausted all avenues now. We've got the courts refusing to deal with perjury in the courts. Everyone's just complicit. So we just need to carry on building numbers. But as you said, everyone needs to get on the same page. But that page has nothing to do with the United Kingdom whatsoever.
Okay, I'm going to draw this to a close now. We've lost Gary again. It's dropped out again. It appears that Heath's battery's died. Do you have any more questions or anything more you want to say, Phil?
No, I think I've covered everything I want to cover.
What about yourself, Martin?
No, I think Phil's covered it all. We're ready. I think we're ready in Derby as well, Phil.
Yeah, this is the thing. Rapid response, you know, set up in, you know, that was set up. We found that because we had no one. You know what I mean? There was no one getting together, but that gave us hope. So I'm not naming the man who set it up, but great guy. I've not met him yet. I've not had the chance to meet him. But if it wasn't for that being set up and give us something to run with, if no one is on board, this is the thing that is going to bring the communities together, helping people in the community. This is where we're going to tackle it. And we've had nearly 1,000 people, thanks to the BANAMAN and his videos and everyone coming together. Nearly 1,000 people join, and people are joining every day. And, you know, it's great. It's amazing. So, and we all know within that group where we're going, where we've come from, why it was started, and you know, where we want to end up.
Terry's always said the way to resolve this is to set the councils down one by one.
Yeah, they're the instigators. They're the ones that started this problem. They're the voice of the government and the banks. They need removing, made an example of, and the people need to get in the place. If that doesn't wake anyone up, they're never going to wake up. No, never.
They're not. No, they're not.
I mean, this is what needs to happen. And if we all help each other, we could start in an area. The amount of people we've got now, we could shut the whole police force down if we started in one area. But organised, lawful, peaceful, you know, and we can do it.
Yeah. Well, we know there'll be a few coppers watching it.
Maybe some of the police officers could take a leaf out of Gary's book. Maybe learn something themselves.
Well, let's hope they do. Let's hope they'll learn something from Phil as well. So, yeah.
Well, we keep trying to drum it into them, don't we, Martin? Maybe we still keep drumming it into them. You know, it's got to happen someday.
That's all we can do, innit? That's all we can do. Yeah. Keep educating them on the days.
That's the one. Yeah.
Ready.
Right, I just want to thank everybody for joining me. This is the first and probably the very last of my Zoom meetings because I'm technically not savvy with Zoom.
One thing before we go. Apparently, the Freemasons have submitted now, according to King John III. The two horses in London, the white horse and the black horse, they were told to do that. If you want to watch his latest video, it's very good. Some good information in it. So, but yeah, the thingy from that is that the Freemasons have submitted now. So
they should as well.
And they are serving the true king, which is King David.